As she mentioned, my name is Dr. Adibe. My students call me Dr. A, all right? I am a physician, a professor, and the chief wellness officer here at Mount St. Mary's. First of all, it's a beautiful day here in Los Angeles, right? Can we all agree? Even when it's cloudy, it's beautiful, right? Even when it's cloudy, it's beautiful. Right out the window, we've got the Pacific Ocean. So I'm so happy you guys could join us. This is my second time hosting a session with Women's Leadership Conference, and on my way in, the shuttle driver, he kept looking back, and he said, "Sir, are you in the wrong place?" I said, "No, I don't think so." He said, "Because all the people I've taken up so far have been women. Are you in the wrong place?" And I said, "Do you mean this isn't the National Arm Wrestling Convention?" He says, "No, it's not." So needless to say, I'm excited to be here. Before we get started, though, I wanted to start with a few questions for the audience, just a few very simple questions. All right. The first of which is, who here, just by a show of hands, has ever wanted to eat healthy or eat healthier? All right. It's a leading question, right? You're at a nutrition session. That probably makes sense, right? But who here feels like maybe you don't necessarily have the time to cook and maybe take some of the preparation that you would need to eat healthy from a timing standpoint? Who would say that has something to do with it? Okay. All right. Now, when we talk about eating healthy, what type of foods come to mind? And you can just call them out. If I say we're going to eat healthy, what are some foods that come to mind? Vegetables, okay. Someone said cheese. Okay, we need to work on that one. What are some other things that come to mind? Fish, quinoa. What about kale? Yeah, the wonder. Oh. All right. Now, if I were to say, what's your name? Daisy. If I were to say, Daisy, we're gonna go to a great dinner. We're gonna have a great dinner tonight, but we can only eat healthy. We can only eat healthy, right? What comes to mind? I mean, are you thinking foods that taste good, or is that kind of like a little iffy? All right, a little bit iffy. Okay, all right. So there's some second thoughts in that case. So when we think about healthy food, we maybe don't necessarily think of it being the best tasting. Is that right? So a lot of people have that maybe assumption or maybe that connotation. Okay. All right. And then last question. Who here has at least a little bit of confusion or some questions about carbs and fats and about what we should or shouldn't be eating because of the guidelines that keep changing all the time? Just by a show of hands. Anyone confused about that? I want to raise my hand too. Okay. All right. So folks, when we talk about wellness, all right, there are so many elements to wellness beyond just the physical domain, okay? We know that there is spiritual well-being, social wellness, and also emotional well-being, are also some really important ones, okay? And all of those are significant and important, but in my mind, nutrition is at the core of all wellness and all well-being, okay? When I talk about nutrition, in my mind, what I think is nutrition is really the fuel for our vitality. It's the energy that sets us in motion. And it really is the starting place for healthy, successful living. The problem is, though, all too often today, we have so many misconceptions about what healthy nutrition actually is. You see, food, if we use it right, food should be a medicine to us. It should be healing and restorative, not damaging and disease-inducing. But too often when we think of healthy foods, as we just discussed, we think of things that maybe aren't the most palatable and maybe aren't the most desirable to us. You know, as a society, we're drawn and conditioned to foods that are considered to be hyper palatable but aren't necessarily good for us. Okay? So nutrition really is the starting place and the fundamental from which all of this springs. And I'm hoping that with today's session, we're able to have a better understanding and appreciation for that. Because if we use it right, as I mentioned, healthy food should be satisfying, it should be invigorating, it should be energizing, and it should even be empowering. So today, I could not be more excited to introduce our special guest. Guys, I got to tell you, Paulette Lambert is not just a guest with us today or someone who I speak with. She's one of my absolutely favorite people. She has shifted my understanding of foods and the role they play in our lives. And she has an absolutely fantastic book that I pretty much eat by every day. And so just to formally introduce her, Paulette is the Director of Nutrition at the Four Seasons Westlake. She has, I know your bio, I don't actually need to read it. I know it offhand. So she's the Director of Nutrition at the Four Seasons Westlake. She has over 30 years of experience working in diabetes prevention and cancer prevention and working in weight control and has lectured extensively with the American Diabetes Association. She's a nationally recognized speaker on all of these topics. She is also an incredible chef, dietitian, and really what I would consider just an incredible person. Paulette's true talent is in taking complicated culinary intricacies and making them simple and for lack of a better term, easily digestible for regular people like you and I. So please join me in welcoming Paulette Lambert.
Thank you. Oh, wow. That's a lot to live up to.
Well, Paulette, we got a lot to talk about.
We do.
I wore my green coat because we were talking about lettuce today, and I thought it would be appropriate.
I should have worn red, and I could be the tomato, but okay.
That's true. That's true. We got a lot of color going on up here, but that's okay. So, when we were out, kind of outside prior to coming in, we talked about a principle that you said you kind of share with some of your executive clients that's really interesting from a leverage standpoint. And I thought that was so key, and we've got a really intelligent audience here today, so I thought maybe you might share that little trick that you use with them.
Well, I'm sure most everybody in this room can probably think they'd like to make some kind of dietary change, weight change, food change, health change. But very often we're motivated and we work very hard, but we're seemingly not getting it done. And generally what I find for most people is we're doing a lot of things that aren't probably the most important one thing, what I call a high leverage change. What do you need to change that's going to give you the most bang for the buck? And you kind of need to start there. You may need to do it in small steps, but you really have to address the right change. For example, people will come in and say, oh, I eat this and I shouldn't. And yes, that's a problem. But when I hear the rest of what they're eating, there's a whole bigger issue that's causing more problem than what they're focused on. And so you kind of have to really look at yourself individually and say, okay, what is my high leverage change? What am I doing that's giving me the most problem? A lot of women show up in my office, women executives, and say, I eat too much, or I've got too much of this, and I don't eat healthy, and et cetera. And I look at their food intake, and it really doesn't check out that bad, except for having 2 glasses of wine every night. So 2 glasses of wine every night is comparable to drinking or having 2 scoops of ice cream every night. It's not a lot of alcohol, but at the end of a month, we had 60 glasses of wine, 12 bottles at 800 calories. Do the math. So even though maybe things are here and there off, that may be the high leverage change that needs to occur for them to be successful. It may be that you have to get down to 3 glasses or 4 glasses a week, and you can do maybe 16 in a month, but you can't do 60 and then try to dance around that and be successful. So we have to really get focused on what your individual issue is. And we have to know what a healthy diet is, a really evidence-based, this is what the goal should be for most of us.
Okay, so I think just kind of dovetailing on that last point, I think one of the key takeaways that you mentioned, at least one key takeaway I want you to have, at least from today's session, is that idea of the highest leverage change, right? Did I say that right? Okay. High leverage change. And what that simply means, folks, is oftentimes when we're trying to make these successful health changes or changes in any area of our lives, we end up doing too much at once. So folks try to do so many things. It's what I call the New Year's Eve syndrome, right? It's like, oh shoot, it's about to be a new year. I should probably get my finances in shape and do all that. And with all these great changes all at once, guess what? Nothing ends up happening, right? So we want to start small, and we want to have a composite view of our health overall and try to distinguish what is the one thing that'll have the greatest impact. I know that it is very difficult, going through your book, it is very difficult and can be very difficult for folks to change behavior, right? And particularly, as I mentioned, when we talk about healthy nutrition, there are so many misconceptions that the food may not necessarily taste good and it's difficult. So I think one challenge that folks will have is they go on this maybe very strict diet, right? I'm only going to eat kale and sunflower seeds for the next 14 days, right? And I'll lose weight, and it's not ideal, right? So one thing that gave me hope and should give all of you hope is I took a trip out to go visit Paulette up at the Four Seasons Westlake, and we had a fantastic lunch. And what I remember was on their menu, they have a list of items that they call healthy-ish. Healthy-ish, and I thought, I don't know what that is, but I want it. So I was hoping that you could explain to the crowd what healthy-ish means, why you support it, and why that's important for our long-term sustainability with these dietary changes.
Our concept on healthy-ish means that we need to stop being so extreme and get the basic stuff done. I find people buying tons of supplements and, I'm only eating this and I'm only eating that health bar and I have to have that smoothie with 80 grams of protein. And we get out on these tangents and we miss the boat about the everyday general routine. And I think our last presenter said that, you really have to be, you kind of want to be in control or on target with your good, healthy behaviors 80% of the time. And we agree, 80% of the time, and then 20% of the time we have moderate indulgence. It's not all about the rigidness of black and white. And we get very black and white where they're thinking, like, if I can't eat kale and quinoa, then I'm just going to eat Oreos. You know, we have a tendency to kind of vacillate back and forth between the extremes. And what we would like you to do is kind of go through the daily and what you should be eating in a day and kind of do your checklist. Did I eat my 3 fruits today? Did I eat this? Did I eat that? And if you happen to have a cookie or two, small or something, or you didn't that day, you know, again, you can have really, I'm a foodie. If it isn't going to taste good, it's not happening with me because I am really a foodie. I mean, I almost dropped out of college to become a pastry chef. My parents, I thought would kill me if I dropped out of college in my junior year. But that was a very big consideration. I'm a foodie. It has to taste and look good. And that's what we have to kind of learn to do, make our healthy food accessible, easy, and taste phenomenal, because then we all will buy into it. And that's a challenge because we cook 50% less than we did in 1970. And for the last 4 or 5, almost 5 decades, we now don't have a lot of cooking skills. We've kind of lost that ability. This was 1960 and you were going to get married and you didn't know how to cook. Guess what, ladies? It wasn't even an optional idea. You're going to cook. Now I have mothers show up in my office and go, I don't cook like it's a great badge. Look what I don't have to do. We have an attitude about having to prepare food as kind of like, I don't have time, I don't like that, I don't have to do it. And maybe you're not great or love it, but we kind of have to buy into the fact that we have to spend a little time or effort on trying to take care of ourselves and our families.